The Democrats' new bill may end the Second Amendment. I'm Andrew Esquire, and this is The Legal Mindset, where we help give you an unfair legal advantage. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about guns lately, about gun rights, about the Second Amendment. And I know you may think, isn't it a lot? Are you exaggerating? Come on, you must be blowing this out of proportion. But no, we warned you that one of Biden's big changes was going to be on gun rights, that they were going to push this as part of their agenda. And unlike the border, it's been something that they indeed have prioritized, not just by one bill, but by multiple bills. In fact, Biden came out and gave a speech that he was going to issue executive orders to tighten up gun control as much as he could without Congress. But the 800-pound gorilla in the room is H.R. 127, the Firearm Registration and Licensing Act. It is the biggest thing and worst thing to happen to the Second Amendment, possibly ever. Now, why do I say that? Well, the Second Amendment is very clear. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And in H.R. 127, there's a whole lot of infringing going on. So let's just break it down. Let's break down the unreasonable and onerous, that is super difficult to comply with, provisions that are in H.R. 127. So it keeps with the name. It starts with registration. So every single gun in the US, yeah, it's got to be registered. Not just make, model, and serial number. No, not just that. But when it was purchased, who purchased it, and very importantly, where it is stored. That's right, exactly where you're keeping that gun. The address where you're keeping that gun. Now, I know you may think, Andrew, well, why is that a problem? I mean, we tell the government about a lot of things. Like when you register a car, you talk about where you're going to keep that car. And yes, that changes over time, but that's not unreasonable, right? Well, I might agree with you if it wasn't for the very next provision in H.R. 127, which is that registration information, the make, model, and exactly where the gun is, should be part of a database that is searchable by anybody. Yes, anybody, not just the government, not just police, not just people who actually need to pull a background check. No, all members of the public, fully open. In fact, China can search it. Anybody can search it. In fact, criminals can search it and would search it. And that's a huge problem. Many crimes in this country are committed with stolen guns, with guns that are stolen from legal gun owners. So why are we going to make it easy for criminals to steal those guns? You're gonna say, hey, here you go. There's a whole list of guns. And guess what? You can just stalk someone's social media, find out when they leave town, and rob them. It's a fairly simple operation. And the government is going to make that criminal activity very simple through that bill. It doesn't end there. If it ended there and just there, I could probably say, okay, this is very bad. But there's other bills that have other provisions that are unreasonable. You got background checks and everything else. Well, this one has background checks too. Background checks are indeed required to purchase a gun, and that's part of the licensing requirement. Yes, everybody who wants to keep and use a gun needs to have a license. Let's say you're old enough to join the Army. Well, if you can go to the Army and shoot a gun in the Army, you should be able to own a firearm privately, right? I mean, you're gonna die in the Army. You should be able to own a gun that you already know how to use. Well, that would be false, guys. In fact, in this bill, you need to be 21 to own or purchase a gun. And it doesn't stop there. You get that background check, okay, the criminal background check, but next you have to pay a fee, an $800 fee. Talk about a fee that is large enough to be discriminatory, to discriminate against people who can't pay an $800 fee. $800 is a huge amount for normal Americans. Heck, that's half of some of the stimulus checks that have gone out. That's a huge amount. And so already you've got a licensing amount that is discriminatory against certain Americans of certain lower socioeconomic status. But that's not where we stop, guys. We keep going. It keeps going. It says to get that background check, part of that license is a psych eval. Yes, a psychiatric evaluation. If the psychologist finds you have any mental, emotional, or relational issues, you're not going to be issued a gun. You can't have a license to own a firearm if you don't pass that psych eval. Now, relational issues, what does that mean? Well, that means they're talking to who you're dating. They're talking to your spouses. They're talking to your ex-spouses. That's right. The bill has language in there that says they are going to go to your ex-spouse. Now, can you imagine if you had an ex-wife that they would be super happy about you owning a gun? Or are they going to say, no, in no way, take all of his guns away? Yeah, I think it's going to be the latter. And on top of that, you're going to have to find 2 other members of your family or associates that can be interviewed. And once again, they can find any reason not to qualify you. Any reason at all. And last time I checked, the APA is not very friendly towards gun owners. Of course, there's certain guns that are going to be banned outright. Any gun that is a scary gun is going to be banned. Yes, that's right. It's going to be banned. So something like an AR-15, an AK, anything that looks dangerous is going to require a super special license that is much harder to get. You're going to have to do additional training. Oh, by the way, almost forgot. To get that license to own any gun, you're going to have to do training. And by the way, that training, it's going to be provided by the government. You're going to have to pass that government course. And isn't that going to be wonderful that the people that are trying to restrict your guns are going to define exactly what you have to do as part of that training course. Now, there's also going to be bans on certain things like certain magazines, types of ammunition, and other things. Now, typically when politicians write bills, they write them pretty broad, and they can even be pretty harsh. Sometimes they start pretty harsh, like this bill, like this worst restrictive bill ever. And they try to negotiate it down. They say, hey, we know this is the worst ever for the Second Amendment. We know this totally breaks the Second Amendment provisions. In fact, when Joe Biden called on Congress to speed this up, to push it, he repeatedly was saying, we're not going to infringe on your Second Amendment rights. Well, he protested a little bit too much, and this is something that pushes very far. And this is part of a bigger plan. This is part of a scheme of multiple bills, multiple actions that come together, restrict the Second Amendment and pretty much put it to bed. That's why you need to check out my video, Sneaky Democrats Coming for Your Guns.